you heard that as you were coming in. This is year 13 for me there. I am in charge of the graduate special education program, so I teach future teachers, but I also teach elementary ed, physical education, and sometimes some health education as well, and I get literacy students as well within my special education classes. I actually started as a teacher, but I started as a physical education teacher, so people are like, wow, that's quite the change in venues. But when I was a PE teacher, kids have lots of behaviors in gym class. So that was one of the things where I was like, I kind of like this. I'm like, I think I'm going to change my career path. And I went into the world of working with individuals with disabilities, focusing in on behaviors. So I am a board certified behavior analyst. I'm able to practice in the state of New York. I'm licensed to do that. I also am a safety care trainer. So what that is someone, when I have kids who are dysregulated, I can help to de-escalate them, verbal de-escalation. If for some reason I get hit, kicked, grabbed, I have skills that I've been taught on how do I get out of those type of holds, and worst case scenario, physical holds. But I haven't had to do a physical hold in a very long time. So that's a great thing. We don't want to do that very often. I also am a certified trauma professional because how we deal with kids who may have had a traumatic upbringing or background is kind of different than how we do with our basic behavioral presentations. So those are one of the things that was important to me to go and get that additional certification. I do have my own practice called Upstate ABA where we do in-home applied behavior analysis. And then I am also a mommy of 2 girls, Brinley and Fayley, and they are 9 and 6 right now. So my teenage years are going to be really hard in my house. I am already prepping for those because they're already sassy right now. So I can only imagine what they look like as teenagers. So for today, I hope you're going to leave with knowing that there are 4 functions to behaviors, and we will go over what those 4 functions are, the supports that we can have per function, and then also just general behavior supports in the home. So the topic is a pretty broad topic, so I kind of bounce around on different strategies and supports that we can talk about. Again, if I'm talking about something and you just have a quick question, by all means, please feel free to ask that question. I'd rather have it be interactive and not get through everything because you can get access to the slides at a later time as well, because Camille has them, she's going to put it up on the website. So just feel free to ask the questions. So what are some behaviors that you have seen? Anybody want to throw one out? What's the behavior you see?
Frustration.
Frustration. Okay. What else?
Avoidance.
Avoidance. Yes. I don't want to do that right now. I'm going to go over the other one. Which one?
Open defiance.
Open defiance. Yes. So all of those are behaviors, and they can be hard, and trust me, they are challenging, and there isn't a one-size-fits-all approach. So when we're dealing with behaviors, it's a lot of trial and error. So what might work one day might not work the next day, and you're like, oh, and I, like as a parent, I get it. I'm like, why is this not working? And I'm a behaviorist, and I'm still like, why is this not working? I gotta go back to the drawing board. And sometimes we get lucky, and we find something that works. And it can work for months, days, weeks, and even sometimes years. So it is gonna be trial and error. And remember too, kids can have bad days. It doesn't mean when they have a bad day that we drop everything and we start fresh. It might mean that they just had a bad day. We have bad days. I know as a parent, I have bad days sometimes. And I don't drop everything, chalk it up to, I'm a human. This is part of life. There's so many variables that we have to deal with. So those are the things that we talk about. Now, each one of those behaviors that you talked about, defiance, frustration, avoidance, all of those, they're serving a function and they're communication. I mean, we kind of know what the avoidance is, like they just don't want to do it. Frustration gets a little bit harder because what are you frustrated about? How can I help you? What are the coping skills? And the defiance can go multiple different ways depending on what's happening, but it could be something along the lines of, I just don't want to do this because I kind of want to make you mad at me. Like, it could be that type of defiance. It could be, I'm not going to do it because I know internally I can't do it and I'm not good with it. So one thing that I've been starting to see a lot with kids, and I can't speak to it for your children, is more and more kids are actually getting diagnosed with anxiety at a much younger level, and they're having a fear of failure. They don't want to fail. They don't want to disappoint. They want to make sure that they're successful, and they also know that sometimes when they do things that are hard, it can lead to failure. So one of the things that I tell teachers in school districts, I tell my future teachers at Russell Sage, normalize making mistakes. This is what we do. We are humans. Nobody is perfect. I make mistakes. I own it. Oh, you know what? look at this, if we're helping with homework, which luckily my husband does a lot of the homework help, because some of that math, I'm like, I don't know. I'm teaching future teachers and I don't even know what that math is right now. But like, these are the type of things where, hey, you know what? Because my oldest daughter doesn't like to get things wrong. It's okay. Take a breath. Everybody makes mistakes. Those are the type of things that we just need to also work to embed within our students. So there are 4 main functions to behaviors. I always remember it by the acronym SEAT, so I kind of put it in order for you too. S is sensory. So this is automatic reinforcement. So these are the types of behaviors that make somebody feel good. So the best way to explain is if you have somebody that is on the autism spectrum, they have self-stimulating behaviors. They have what we call stimming behaviors. They could be shaking their hands. They can be rocking. They could do, like I have one person who likes to pull strings from a shirt, and he pulls them and then he looks at them. That's self-regulation. That is automatic reinforcement. It makes them feel good. This is a really hard behavior to address, because how do we take something that makes them feel so good? There's not a whole lot of replacement behaviors for it. Second function to behavior is escape or the avoidance. So they don't want to do it. They're not going to do it. And then we have attention, which is attention-seeking behavior, which I do think a lot of defiant behavior is based on attention, because kids are looking for that power struggle. They want you to engage with them. They want you to argue with them because it gives them that attention. So one of the best things that you can do when you're in that situation, choice, or you just say, I'm not ready to have this conversation right now, and you walk away. And a lot of parents are like, okay, what happens when I walk away? And they follow me, because that's what they do. You go and you take a break on your own. Well, then they bang on my door. You're right. They will bang on your door because they still want your attention. You don't open that door yet. You have to wait. I will come and help you. I'm not ready. I need a break. And the same time that you're sitting there and saying, I'm not ready, you're calm, you're regulated, and what you're doing is you're modeling strategies for them. You're modeling that it's okay to say, I'm not ready. That is okay, and that's part of a self-regulation script that we will go over. The 4th function to behavior is tangible. So this is really access to tangibles. And tangibles, a lot of time we think of phone, food, iPads, computers, but it also can be people and places. So if we have kids who want to go to a specific, like the neighbor's house, or they want to go somewhere else, that's access to tangibles. If they want to go hang out with that one friend that you're like, oh man, I'm not so sure that's the best friend to hang out with, that's access to tangibles. So sometimes I have kids on my caseload where they do sneak out of the house. And they sneak out of the house because they want to go and get something. The function to that behavior is they want to go and hang out with that friend, or they want to do whatever it is that they're doing outside of the home. Then a lot of people will say to me, control. My kid is doing this for control. I don't disagree. Research just says that it's not actually a function of behavior, because most of the time control will fall into one of those other 4 categories. And you can also have a behavior that maybe starts as escape, but then it morphs into attention, because they escaped a task. Now I'm sitting here and I'm trying to help them, I'm trying to work through it, and I'm reinforcing their behavior by providing them with so much attention. And we also have to watch out for learned helplessness. We have a lot of kids who are like, oh, I just can't do this, especially if it comes to homework. I don't know if you guys are working at homework at home, but I can't do this, I don't know this. And their hope is, if I say this enough, you're going to come in, and you're going to do it for me, and then it's going to be done, and I'm able to move on with the day. So those are some of the things that we are seeing. Those are the 4 functions to behaviors. So with sensory, kind of the definition is when a person's own movements, actions feel good to that individual. That's what it is. So it's really hard for us to figure out, what are we going to do if that's the function? It provides automatic reinforcement, it's internal reinforcement, and those are some of the examples. Self-touching, twirling hair, rocking, stimming behaviors, and also deep pressure. I don't know if you have any kids that really like that deep pressure. A giveaway that they're looking for pressure is you'll see them start pushing up against stuff. And what they're doing when they're pushing up is they're feeling that pressure through their whole body. Or I've seen kids where they will come up and they'll kind of push into you, not in an aggressive way, just as it's kind of like I want a hug, but they're pushing it a little bit harder. That's sensory seeking behavior. There's also sensory avoidance behavior, like all these lights for some kids might be extremely overwhelming, noises, sounds, and I'm not talking to just about individuals on the spectrum. We all have sensory sensitivities. I know for me, there's certain sounds that I'm like, oh man, that one's just really irritating me. That's a sensory component. As soon as I can get away from that, I feel a little bit better.
Is, like, my son always hits my thighs.
Yeah.
Like, is that a sensory thing?
It could be, and it could also just be like, I just know that you're right next to me. Tapping, so a lot of times sensory can be very similar to our fidget-like behaviors. So sensory is often highly repetitive behaviors. So for me, when I'm doing things, I used to have one ring on this, I would just sit here and spin it, and spin it, and spin it. Or I tap, or when you're sitting in a desk, or you move your leg really fast. Like that is doing something for us. I know for me, if I'm in a meeting, or I'm doing something and I'm a little stressed, I tend to start fidgeting with something. It helps me to regulate. Same type of idea for any kid that has those type of sensory behaviors is normally it is serving to help them regulate their body. Sometimes it's not because they get so overstimulated that it doesn't help them, and then they either need regulation strategies themselves or co-regulation. And if we see kids with sensory strategies, that's when we can come in. How I pretty much tell quickly if a kid is looking for sensory seeking behavior is I'll just lightly touch their arm, and if they're okay with it, I might push a little bit harder, never like really hard. And then if they like that, that's a sensory seeking behavior. I'm giving them some additional input that's making them feel better. And that's an internal drive need. And there's lots of different sensory systems within the body. So that would be, it kind of gets outside of my scope. That's more of occupational therapists, but there's lots of pieces. Most of the time they like proprioceptive input, whole body type of input, weight bearing, give them jobs to do. So even if they're like, no, I'm not doing that, there are times with my daughters, I'm like, you're gonna bring the laundry baskets upstairs. When they're just all over the place and they're driving me a little bit crazy. I need you to bring your laundry basket upstairs. I don't wanna you're gonna bring your laundry basket upstairs. Like that's what you're gonna do right now. And then they'll bring it because it's heavy, it's big. It's going to give them some of that internal need that they don't even realize they need. I remember I worked with a family and they have a farm and I'm like, hey, does he do any chores on the farm? They're like, no. I'm like, you really should try. Like get him out there, lift the hay bale. He was big enough to lift the hay bales. They're normally 50 pounds. I grew up on a horse farm, that's how I know that. They're normally about 50 pounds, so he was able to do that. And then later they're like, that actually really works. Like he's not as amped up at the end of the day. Like he gets home from school, we send him out, he does some chores, then he comes in and it's kind of like a different child because they need that input. Movement is very important to all of us. And even kids with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, they need movement. They just don't know how they're supposed to move their body. So if we can come up with different activities, that would be helpful for them. I'm not saying you have to live on a farm to do this, but you could figure out things in the home that you could have them do. I don't know if anyone ever does wood piles, but that would be something good to have them be able to do. They're gonna fight you on it. I'm not gonna lie, like my kids fight me on stuff all the time. We're gonna do that. And sometimes I even go, first do this, and then I'll give you a piece of candy, which probably contradicts itself now that I'm thinking about that. I don't sugar them up, but it's still something to give them a little bit more. When we're talking about sensory seeking behaviors or sensory behaviors, we have overstimulation and understimulation. So too loud of an area, too many people around, noises, all of that, the light and deep skin pressure. So some people like the deep, some just like the soft, where you're just lightly brushing your arm against them. And if you have younger kids, this is much more easier to do. If you have like adolescent kids, they might be like, you're not touching my arm right now. But if they start doing like this, and they're like, oh, I kind of like that. So touching the thigh, I might be like, give me your arm. And sometimes how I start is I play a game. Close your eyes. And this is like you doing it on your child's arms. Close your eyes. Once I get to this and you touch it with your finger, tell me stop. It's a game. All you do is you just take your fingertips and you slowly move it up the arm. And you'd actually be surprised because most of the time they'll say stop right here and it's not even close. And then you stop and they look and they're, oh my God, play it again. And then you play it again, and at the same time you're giving them that little bit of sensory input that perhaps they're looking for, that they will like. We also know that some children are sensory seekers while others are avoiders, and it can be a mix. So like somebody might be, I don't know if anybody wears headphones, but headphones are an option. I also understand the social significance of headphones for kids, but they don't want to wear the headphones because it's loud, it can make them stick out. But now we have AirPods that go in. We also have, I don't know if you've seen this, but in the winter they have the like winter headbands that cover your ears, but now there's also music that are able to play in it, so nobody would even know that they're listening to music. So that's always a good strategy. I find a lot of times kids do well with music. Now I'm not talking about like giving them like heavy rock or rap music. It doesn't have to be calming classical, but something more appropriate, and that will help to regulate them as well. And then we talked about the fact that sensory seeking behaviors are really hard for us to help our children understand. We want to consult with an OT, that's the ones that know the best. Some basic strategies, I call them tier 1 because that's just the educator in me. In your home, dim the lights or place coverings over them. Lamps. My sister does not use overhead lights. She only uses lamps in her house. And I'm like, why? Like, it's not that bright. She's like, I can't do the light of regular lamps. And sometimes it's things like that that we don't even think about. Like, I don't think about that until I went to my sister's home. Like, why do you have 100 lamps everywhere? She's like, that's the type of lighting. Everything else hurts my eyes. And she has a little son too, and he's the same way. It's too much for him. Crowds are too much for him. So she's working to control the environment while he's starting to learn to request, I need a different location. There's too many people. So like he came over to our neighborhood on Halloween and it was too much, so we took a little break. That's okay. Before it used to be I just run around and be all crazy. Now we're structuring that behavior a little bit more on what that looks like. You can also focus on voice level of all children. Like, oh yes, everybody is being loud right now. How can I help you? So it's important for kids to notice that they're not being signaled out. So it's everybody is that. Or if they're like, it's really loud in here. You're right. I agree with you. It's really loud. What should we do? In that moment, if you think your child is able to problem solve, work to problem solve with them. Don't do it for them. So if they're saying, I'm uncomfortable with this, thank you for telling me. What can we do? And they might look at you first and be like, I don't know. Then you model the steps. Well, it's too loud. Like right now it's kind of loud with the vacuum cleaner. So we could be like, it's too loud. What can we do? We can leave. We can go to another location, or we can just ignore it. What are your thoughts? Ask them. Then they've picked a solution. Then we go and we execute it together. And the problem-solving skills we want to use for any type of behavior, if they're regulated to do it. If they're crawling out of their skin and you know that, and you're like, oh man, if I try to ask them, what should we do right now? It's only going to make them more mad. Don't do it. Don't do it. But if you see those triggers starting, have those conversations. You should also, again, provide movement. We talked about that. Determine a calming and safe place in the home. And this is across the board for any behaviors. We have a guest bedroom in our house. That's we call it our timeout room. That's where you're gonna go. You need a safe, there's a bed, there's a dresser, and there's a closet. That's it. There's nothing in the dressers. I got some dresses in the closet, but like that's it. That's the only thing that's in that room. Your body is telling you it needs a break. Time to go and take a break. One thing that I don't do is I don't normally associate it with time. Any idea why? Why don't I associate it with time? Kids don't understand time. There's a lot of kids where I can be like, you're going to be in there for 5 minutes, they're going to blow up. And I can say, you're going to be in there for 2 seconds, they're going to blow up. Because they don't understand the concept of time. And if they're dysregulated, they're still going to have a hard time. Even if they're older, they're like, all right, I know what 5 minutes is. But if they're already dysregulated, I'm like, all right, you're going to be in there for 5 minutes. That still can have a reaction. So instead, it's you can come out when you're calm. I'll know you're ready when you're not screaming, when you're not yelling, and we can have a conversation. And I normally end it with always, we can have a conversation. Because I don't let them just come out after taking a break, because if they're not regulated, the first thing I say, or the sister says, is going to re-trigger them. So I want to make sure that I have the conversation with them so that I know that they're actually regulated. Because I could put, I'm just speaking on my own kids, but other kids in schools too, I'd be like, let's go take a break, and I'm ready. And I'm like, no, I'm not so sure you're ready. I'm telling you I'm ready. Oh, you're not ready. Because if you were ready, you wouldn't have had that response when I said, oh, I'm not sure yet. It's been 2 seconds. So clearly you're not ready yet. So then we have the conversation. What can I do next time? How can I help you? How does your body feel? And I don't rapid fire the questions. I do it based off whatever the behavioral presentation was. And sometimes my response isn't, how can I help you? It's, how are you feeling right now? I'm feeling a little upset. Okay, it's okay to feel upset. It's okay, like we should validate their feelings. It's okay to feel upset. We all feel upset. How we respond is what we have to get into control. We can't have these big outbursts on whatever that might be, so instead, what are we going to do next time? And kids will have those conversations, but you can't have those conversations when they're dysregulated. It's not going to go well. Also, other things you can have is access to specific materials, weighted blankets, fidgets. Also be aware of senses and smells in the environment. I had one family who was like, listen, when my kid smells fish, I get massive blow-ups. And I was like, that's really interesting. Not an autism diagnosis, not a developmental disability. It's an emotional behavioral disability for this kid, and that's what the parents said. I'm like, wow. She's like, I don't know what to do about it. She's like, so we don't eat fish. We don't take them to the grocery store. We don't go to certain restaurants that have a fishy smell. And I said, okay. And I said, but down the road, part of society is that it might smell like fish. Like if you go to the ocean, she's like, we don't go to the ocean right now. I said, okay, but we can't continue to have this little bubble. We do have to teach it. So I said, start having conversations with your child on where are we going to go? Pick one spot that might have a little bit of a fish, because it's kind of like it's exposure therapy. Like we're going to start to smell it so that we can learn how to deal with it. Same thing if there's other type of triggers for your children. I don't know what their triggers would be, but start to expose it. I have a lot of parents who are like, no, we just don't do that. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, we need to do that because eventually they're going to graduate high school. They're not going to have this bubble. They're going to go off. They're going to do things. They need to know how to function in society and how to be able to address the different variables that are going to happen within society. And that's really hard. I mean, it's hard for us sometimes. I will tell you, I don't like crowds. I don't like crowds. So I will avoid certain crowds. But other times I'm like, all right, like we've gone to Disney World a couple times. I'm like, oh man, like this is gonna be a lot, waiting in line. I don't like people touching me and coming up, but that's something that I have to work with. And I will tell my children that, oh, mommy doesn't like when people touch her, but you know what? I'm gonna take a deep breath and I'm gonna be okay. And I'm just modeling every single time. Luckily my girls could care less because they just go around and touch everybody anyways, and they're like, hey, how are you? And I'm like, what are you doing? Don't touch people. But that's kind of what they do. So then we also have escape behaviors. When something triggers an individual to engage in behaviors, to escape and or avoid, delay an activity from starting. So at home I see this a lot when demands are put on place. They don't want to do something, that's when we're going to see the escape-based behaviors. Sometimes the escape-based behaviors is as simple as them just sitting and not doing anything. So it's kind of funny, I was having a conversation with my girls about the internet when I was growing up. And I was like, listen, it was dial-up, it was these big old computers, and it took like 10 minutes to log on. And this is them as I'm telling them, yup, and I'm like, that was not an option when I was growing up. So like, put it down, let me explain it to you. And there's a little bit of defiance to that because I'm trying to have a conversation. The other part that's really important for us to acknowledge, and I actually got this from Gina Cosgrove because we did a presentation together and she brought it in. I was like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. We live in a society where people, everyone, get immediate reinforcement. They get immediate responses. If I want to know how do I do something, I Google it. But now I have ChatGPT that gives me even faster answers to my questions. If I want to know anything at any time, I have my phone. I have my computer. So it's immediate gratification for these kids. And that's something that's happening. We, as humans, can't provide immediate gratification for most of the things, so we have to figure out how do we get their attention. The other part when it comes to technology is when they're on their phones or something, whatever it is, it could be a website or video gaming. Video gaming is a big one. Dopamine gets released into the brain, and that's like, it's a little bit of a high, and then it's temporary, and it goes back down. So we have to compete with that. How do we compete with that? That makes it a little bit harder. So, if possible, if you have kids that have technology and it's really challenging to get them to engage with you or to follow through on tasks, look at apps like, we use Family Link. So that's the one that I know. I know there's additional apps for Apple that what it is you get to go on and control your child's individual Chromebook, cell phone, and you can sit there and be like, all right, you can't be on TikTok for more than 1 hour a day. You can only be on your phone from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. There's all these different filters that you can apply, and that helps. That's an environmental my household, if my girls are being rude, they're not following the directions, they didn't do what was asked of them, my husband has it on the hook, he just goes, gets on his phone, phone's off. And he'll be like, your phone is locked until you follow this direction. And that's been one of the things that we've been really working on, because they want to do what they want to do. They're going to be openly defiant. Nope. This is one thing that I can still control, because it's hard when we get older. There's things we can't control, and they just have easy, free access to do it. So we've tried to bring in those environmental controls on what can we do. Yes?
How do you balance, like, not wanting to do schoolwork and taking the hard way of figuring out the problem, because they are right, there is so much immediate access to
Yeah.
everything. So how, I think the escape and the defiance comes in play with, I'm not doing that when I can just Google it.
Yes. Yes. So if it's the work, most of the time schoolwork is coming home and it's very specific directions. Like if it's math, sorry, you can't really Google that all the way through. Plus you got to show the math. That's just kind of how it goes. So part of what we can do is we actually don't do homework at night. We do it the morning. So before they go to school, that's when they sit down and we do it in the morning. And we even do it for my oldest, whose bus comes at like 7:30, and then the youngest, their bus comes at 8:45. But we do it in the morning because now they're not getting anything. The rule is, I'm going to feed you breakfast. While I'm feeding you breakfast, you're doing your work. And then also that's when we review for spelling tests or different types of activities, because now it's fresh in their mind and we're able to do it that way. But we stopped doing after school because they are exhausted.
Yeah.
They are exhausted. They have been at school, their brains have been working, so we're getting a little bit more from our girls by doing it in the morning. And then I know a lot of schools, I don't know if Avon Park has Reflex or anything, but they are asked to get like their green light or go onto CERN or whatever those technology things are. You can do that, or you can do the homework, but we also set a timer. So I'm going to tell you, Alexa is like your best friend. If you have an Alexa in your household, we use it all. Alexa, set a timer for 10 minutes. You're going until Alexa goes off. We also use it when they have little temper tantrums. And they're like, now they're okay and they're calm. They don't just get to go right back to doing whatever they want to do. There's going to be a little bit of a consequence follow through. You're either going to have a conversation and we're going to talk about it and then we can move on. Or if you're choosing not to have the conversation, I'm not pushing it because I don't want to re-trigger, you're going to take a little break for 10 minutes and you're not going to get access to this, and this. Alexa, set a timer for 5 minutes. So we figure it out that way. And then it's nice because what my girls do, Alexa, how much more time on the timer? And then Alexa's like, 3 minutes and 24 seconds left on your timer. It's just nice because then it's not us who are constantly being asked, how much time on the timer? Ask Alexa. We don't even have to say ask Alexa anymore. It's there. Like they just know those things to do. But we do try switching up the schedule and the expectations. The other thing is have the conversations with your kids. When do you want to do this? How can I help you to do this? You're not going to be able to, you tell them, you're not going to be able to just do whatever you want to do. That's just not how it works. And so I try to build in reinforcement in sometimes in my household and other households that I've talked to with parents, we can come up with a visual. And on the visual, it's kind of like a 10 frame, like little boxes. And every time I have to ask you to do something, more than once, I put a little X in the box. They can see it at all times, and I'll tell them if they're not in the room, this is an X in the box. You got 8 boxes left open. And then for some parents, we've done it where at the end of the day, if you have any box left open, they're going to get a little treat. It's quick, it's edible, and then we move on. One parent was like, I'm going to do that as they're reading at the end of the night. And I was like, I don't know about that because I want you to have that interaction with them. I don't want you to take away the reading. So we talk about different things. Maybe it's they get to pick the last TV show that they get to watch of the night. Like there could be different things that you want to do, but I make it a reinforcement system. I don't make it a punitive system. It's not if you fill this up, this is your consequence. It's if you don't fill it up, here's what you can earn. Kids are going to do better if they have the ability to earn. For most kids. Every once in a while, I get that kid who needs that like punitive system and that's what works for them. But try the positive first. Try to reward them for those positive behaviors. Additional escape-based behaviors, triggers can be known or unknown. We talked about demands, participation in non-preferred activity. So that could be sometimes for brushing their teeth. They don't really like that sometimes. Or Picking up their clothes, picking up their room, those can be type of non-preferred activities that they try to escape. We're doing this. We're not moving on. A lot of times my girls have a pretty busy schedule. They're in sports, they do different things, and the oldest one has basketball 6:30 to 8 tonight, which is really late for a 4th grader, I might say. And I'm like, that's pretty rough, but my husband's taking her, which also means my 1st grader is going as well. So it's gonna be nice.
For her too.
Yep, their bedtime's gonna be like 9 o'clock tonight. But we're not leaving until this is done. And this is one of those times where I've really had to work with my husband on it. We need to hold steady on this. Does that mean that we might be late to something and I don't want to be late to it? Yes. But until we do that, they're just gonna think that, we can just wait off on this. We don't have to do this. I'm not gonna do that now because we can still go. Hold steady to it. Because if we don't hold steady to our follow through, when they get older, things are gonna get a little bit harder. There's lots of different behaviors that individuals can engage in, and with families that I've worked throughout like a couple decades now, they've sat there and they've said, hey, this started like this, then it morphed here, and it's just kind of getting worse, but he's changing it every time. Okay, well, what do? Do you hold him accountable? No, because I'm a little afraid of if I do hold him accountable, what does that look like? And I said, you said that to me 10 years ago, and now we're still doing the same thing, and there's no accountability. So if possible, if your child is not that old, start holding the accountability now so that they will learn there are going to be consequences. Defiance behavior is really hard to address, and avoidance as well. So what we do have control over as parents is, you want to go do this? Okay, we're not doing this until that time. This has to get done first. I use a first then approach all the time. Before we're leaving, first you have to do this. You're not going to get your treat until you do that. And do I get yelled at? Do my kids yell at me? Yes. Do they throw temper tantrums? Yes, they do. And I feel for them because there's moms that behaviorists, so like they get a whole nother level of it on it. But like I don't care. That's what has to happen. And they are angels in school, and then they come home and they just release it, and I'm like, oh my goodness, like this is a lot. But I hold steady.
If they complain and scream,
throw
throw
still
the
do it.
whole time they're doing it,
I don't care.
you just let them.
I just let
as
it
long
go.
as they're doing it.
As long as you're doing it, that's the goal. And I always remember, what is the goal? My direction was I asked you to do this. And I get called, I don't know about you guys, so this is my older daughter says this to me, fine, mother. Every time, she's, mother, that's her go-to for me. She knows I don't like it, she really does. So she'd be like, okay, mother, and I'll be like, and it got to the beginning, in the beginning I was like, don't say that. That's just, now I just ignore it. Because she's looking for that reaction from me. So I just ignore it. And now my youngest has started saying it too sometimes, and I'll just give her like the parent death stare, like, don't you even go there. So she's stopping, she's getting on that one, but I just don't acknowledge it. And nice job cleaning, and what I do is I just praise them away. And does it make them a little bit more mad? Yes. Does it make me a little happy? Yes. Because now I'm just kind of interacting with them a little bit more, and it keeps me a little bit sane. Because we know our kids can get us going. Like, they can get us going. If we are not regulated, our kids will not be regulated. So it's much more easier for me to sit there with one of the kids, and they're saying all these things, and I'm secretly inside getting mad and upset about it. I love that you picked that up. You're doing such a great job right now. And they might give me the death stare, say more things to me. I'm regulated, because now I'm finding this funny. Like, sometimes I just need to do that for me to keep my cool, and that's okay. At the same time, I might be like, I'm not ready. I'm not ready to deal with this right now, so I need a little bit of a break. Because if I try to deal with it, they're not regulated, I'm not regulated, it's not gonna get any better. So that's one thing that I really want you to leave with. If you're not regulated, you will not help your kid regulate. It just won't work. And there are times that I will switch out with my husband. And I'll be like, nope, not doing it. Tag, you're it. And sometimes I do that more than I probably should, because I deal with behaviors all day. So I'm like, I need to tag right away, like this is the night I can't do it. So if you have the ability to switch out, switch. Other escape behaviors could be requests to work with a sibling. Sometimes my girls don't like each other very much, so that can be a trigger. And then a trigger can be specific to a child. So escape-based behaviors can be running out of the room or around the room, falling to the ground, putting their head down, just basic non-compliance. Like, I'm not going to listen to you. I'm going to sit here, or they sit in a chair. Those can be basic non-compliance, throwing items, property destruction, shutting down. That's more non-responsive. Verbal and they'll go to their room or the bathroom. And I will give credit where credit is due for some kids. They go to the bathroom because they know you're not going to bother them. They know that's the way that they can get rid of it. So I give, like, one of my daughters has started to pick up on that. I'm like, oh man. So then I'll go there, knock on the door, you pooping in there? Like trying to get some type of joke going. And then sometimes she's like, yeah, or no. And then half the time, not to lie, she comes out and she looks like a clown because she's just put on a whole bunch of makeup in there. But like, it's an escape-based behavior. I asked her to do something. She went to the bathroom. Then she got distracted while in the bathroom and found all the play makeup and just put it all on and comes out with it. But like those, they're escaping it. But kudos to her because she figured it out. I'm not going to follow her into the bathroom. She hasn't started lying to me yet. She's actually been very honest when I asked her what she's doing in there. Ignoring is also escape-based behavior, and then we talked about them being on their technology. I think technology is one of the biggest things that we have to battle right now as parents. That has been really hard, and my kids are still young, but I also know that there's some parents who are like, I'm not giving my kid a phone. And I was like, okay, I can respect that, I can understand that. This doesn't work for me. I need to know where my kids are. They need to be able to get a hold of me. We live in a neighborhood, so my oldest doesn't have a phone. She has that watch. Has anybody ever seen the Gizmo watch? It's like a smart watch. It's a phone, but it's only a watch. There's no other phone that's attached to it. So it's a kind of cool thing. It's tracking. With escape-based behaviors, these do involve extinction. We want to get rid of those behaviors. So the defiance, the running, the avoidance, the tantrums, all of those we do want to get rid of. How we get rid of them is going to be a little bit different based on the kids and who we're working with. We have to teach kids coping strategies. They don't learn that all the time. There is social emotional learning happening in the school, which is wonderful, but it has to happen at home too. So when kids get upset, one of the best things you can say to them is, what can you do right now? Or model the strategies. So there's times where I know my daughters are upset. Alexa, play some Taylor Swift. I get them right in the start of the agitation phase, and I'm like, oh man, if I don't do something now, one of them's gonna lose it, or they're gonna go after each other. I change it up. And then it's like it never happened. Whatever the trigger was, it's like it never happened. But I'm teaching them, I'm modeling. I can listen to music. I've also made times where I'm like, why don't you go upstairs? Why don't you just take a couple breaths? If you have kids who like reading, mine don't really like reading too much, but if you have kids who like reading, why don't you go pick up a book? Why don't you go outside? Go jump on the trampoline. There could be different things. You just have to offer it to them because they're not going to think about it in the moment. Now, I'm not saying as the kid is running around, throwing a tantrum, screaming and yelling at me, I'm probably not going to be like, hey, go jump on the trampoline. I might be like, your body's showing me you're not ready. We can do a couple things. Do you want to go upstairs and take a break, or do you want me to help you with something? We want to give choice, because if we don't give choice, kids are going to hear what they're going to perceive us saying is we're giving them a direction. I'm not giving you a direction, I'm trying to help you. And then if you try to give those choices and it's not working, walk away. Walk away, because it's only going to make it worse. They're dysregulated. Sometimes we don't do it on purpose, but we fuel them a little bit further by trying, I don't want to do any of those things, you don't understand. Okay. I'm going to go and I'm going to start doing the dishes. If you need something, let me know. Alexa, play some Taylor Swift. I'm there, they're going to hear it, I'm not interacting with them, I don't want to frustrate them anymore. I put some music on, I changed the environment, and we can see if it starts to help 4 of them. They just need to know what the strategies are that they have. Are there times where I directly tell my girls to go up to timeout? Yes, there absolutely is, because they just need a reset, and they're not going to do it by themselves. So now it's a direction. Now you need to go up. And normally it's escalating fashion. It's not right away. It's, how can I help you? What can I do? Do you want to do this or this? Can you help me with this? And sometimes I give them jobs, because sometimes they'll respond to jobs. And if I can get one of them to do the job, then normally what happens, the second one wants to do it, and then they argue a little bit over the job while they're doing it. But at least we're moving. We've got momentum. We're able to get through those behaviors. You can also do the replacement behaviors. When you're teaching replacement behaviors, it's really important that you have a conversation with your kid first. Because you want to say, hey, I've noticed this is happening. I notice every time I bring up reading, you get upset. You shut down. Whatever it might be, what can I do to help? I'm thinking I could do this, this, and this. And you'd actually be surprised how many kids buy into a reinforcement system. So if I'm like, I'm thinking Perhaps that every night that you read, I'll give you $1, and then I'll take you to Target and you can buy something. The idea is that we fade out that reinforcement, but in the beginning we're trying to build a replacement behavior, or we're trying to teach them you don't have to escape or avoid it, we can do something else. What you offer for reinforcement can vary. In some homes we've done like little poker chips. We've done it as a being good system, especially if they have siblings. So if one of them's getting upset about something, I can go, and we've done this at my girls' house, and they each have little baggies of poker chips. Each poker chip from me equals $0.25. My husband $1. I'm like, no, it's $0.25. So each one is $0.25. So if I'm doing something, and I requested them to do something, and one of them's doing it, the other one's not, the one who's doing it, here's a poker chip. I love it. And they're like, oh, I want a poker chip too. What do you got to do for the poker chip? I got to do my work. I don't want to do my work. Then you're not getting a poker chip. Simple as that. So try reinforcing the other kiddos. If you do something like that and you have multiple kids in your home, it's got to be for all kids. All kids can participate in it. And we want that because at the same time, our children will tell the other one, well, if you just did it, you would have been able to get it. So they tell their siblings all the things that we want to tell them that we don't, they actually say it for us. So that's always a really helpful piece for those reinforcement systems. And then again, just model the appropriate behaviors. So what can we do? We talked about consistency with expectations, follow through on plans, offer assistance. If they're escaping because you gave them a demand, offer to help them. It's not going to be that hard. I mean, if you're helping them every single time, we're not going to do it for them, but we're going to start to help them. And then as you continue to help, you fade back. You know what? I helped you with this the last time. How about you start, and then I'll come join. Or we'll start together, and then I'll back off.
How do you phase out the rewards?
I just do it. So if it's, if I was doing like the poker chip, what it is, instead of doing it like all the time frequently, I wait and I pick those specific moments. And I make it a little bit bigger. I still have it so that they're still realizing they're getting it, but then after that I do fade it back. I don't tell them that I'm fading it back because that'll probably be a whole argument within itself. So I just do it. I just start doing it. And then I can just tell them too and remind them, I know you want that other poker chip, or I know you're working for this because I know you want to go to Target and buy this video game or do this. And sometimes I tell families, I have one family who's like, I'll buy them a video game every week. And I'm like, oh God, they're like $50. Like, no, we're not doing that. So instead, it doesn't always have to be tangible items. It can be moments. It can be memories. We can go out on a bike ride. We can go to the Y. We can do different things. It doesn't have to always be us spending our money. Because there was some behavior person said, we don't get a cookie for crossing the road, we get to keep our life. I'm like, okay, yes, I understand that. But sometimes we have to teach our kids how to successfully do that. And if that means I'm going to give them a cookie to make sure they're safe in the beginning, I'm going to give them a cookie. But I do understand the meaning behind it. Other things we can do, here's the big thing. Avoid power struggles, because you're never going to win. You will never win a power struggle. You will lose. I have yet to meet somebody who has won a power struggle. I've had people say, I've won a power struggle. Really, tell me your secret, because I would love to know. They're like, well, after 30, 40 minutes, no, stop, you've lost. They took up 30, 40 minutes of your time when they were probably supposed to be doing something else. So no. We avoid the power struggles. The moment that we feel like they're trying to have that argument back and forth, and I get it, because sometimes as a parent, I'm guilty of it. I'll be like, no, I'm going to see this one through, and I'm going to win this one, and I've never won it in the end. So instead, I'm just like, I'm not ready for this conversation, and I move on. And I just continue to move on because it's not going to win. It's just going to make me upset. It's not going to help for anyone. We give presets, not on fading their reinforcements, but hey, today we're going to be doing this. Here's the expectations. Make checklists. Make to-do lists. Here's what you are expected to do. Then you don't have the kid coming in and saying, well, I didn't know I had to do that. I worked with a family for years, actually, when the individual was 8th grade all the way up to senior. He's graduating this year, which is great. And they would tell him things, and then when they'd be like, you can't go out and do this because you didn't do the things you wanted to do, he'd be like, you never told me that. You never told me that. And he was insistent that they never told him. And it would be big blowouts. So I said, what you're going to do is you're going to put it on a whiteboard, or you're going to put it on a Post-it note. or you're gonna put it somewhere where they can see it. Then it's not any, you didn't tell me, it's right here. It's a visual, it's posted, these are the expectations, that's what we're going to do. And that did help, and they're still using it 5 years later. They still have it up on the board. He doesn't go and erase it, because if you erase it, then you're really not getting what you need to do. But then it can no longer be a he said, she said. You didn't tell me, yes I did, now it is. It's right there, it's on the to-do list, it's ready to go. That could be your visual schedules, your presets. When they do start to get upset, limited language, stick to it. First we gotta do our list. We're not leaving until you do our list. And that's it. That's it. We have to have those follow-throughs. We talked about structured choices. When you're talking to them and they're upset, and they're saying things, and it's kind of one of those things where we can't just completely ignore. Okay. Or like, I hate you, you're the worst mother in the world. Okay. I don't know if you get that one, but I get that one a lot. Okay. And as they're like stomping up the stairs to go and take their break, I hate you, you're the worst mother. Okay, I love you. Like just little things like that. And most of the time I have a flat effect. And my husband's like, how do you do it? I'm like, because this is just what I do for a living. If I have any other type of effect, it's gonna have a different response. So if I can just be like, okay. And I watch my body language. So every time I try to model, I go like this, because this is what I do with my arms and hands when I'm working with my kids. My kids, your kids, all of the kids. Because if I'm like this, it's more intimidating. And I'm much of an arm crosser that's comfortable for me, but I've really worked hard to be like this. And if my kids, like I'm still taller than my kids right now, so if we're having an argument, I try to get down their level. I'll sit in a chair. I'll sit at the counter, so that I'm not trying to come off intimidating, because I'm not looking to escalate it further. Okay. You know, I can wait till you're ready. I'm not in a rush. This is your time. Things like that are the type of things that I might say to them. With self-regulation, with escape behaviors, a lot of that is us modeling for them. We talked about collaborative planning, reinforcement systems, teaching the replacement behaviors as modeling, and then also just redirecting them. Redirect them to something else. If they become fixated on, this isn't what I want, this isn't fair, first off, my thing is, with fair, everyone gets what they need. That's what it is. So if your sibling needed this right now, everyone gets what they need. You might need something in a day, an hour, a month. We'll do it then. I don't know, but like the other night I was ordering stuff off Amazon because I think my oldest needs socks. And my youngest is like, I need socks. And I'm like, no you don't. You have like 50 pairs of socks. It's overflowing. I need socks now. Oh, I don't understand that. And then she just stops and she's like, Mom, I'd like some socks. Okay, you're not getting socks still because you don't need any socks. Like I'm not just spending money to spend money because so-and-so wants, like because Brinley's getting it, you don't get it as well. But those are the type of conversations. But the moment she raises her voice, oh, I can see you're not ready. That's my immediate response. And at the same time, I'm taking a little bit of a breath before I do it because I'm modeling in that moment. You're not ready. Try again. And I'm trying to get it. And I do have, my girls do have some big behaviors. They are not perfect by any means. So it's, I have to co-regulate sometimes with my girls because they can't do it yet. There's a part of your brain, prefrontal cortex, that helps with self-regulation. Any idea on when that's actually developed, by what age?
27.
Oh, really close. Somebody said 27.
25.
25. Yep.
That's wow.
25. Little interesting fact that's coming out in the research. For males, they're saying it's closer to 30.
I was going to say, they lie.
Is it even later?
I'm not going to say, but they lie. And I'm a medical guy, I know.
Oh, okay, there you go. But yeah, I just saw that. Just came out in research. I just saw it. I was like, wait, what? But yeah, I find that pretty funny. So most people laugh about that. I was like, that's interesting. But yeah, 25. So we're sitting here and we're working with kids who don't have the skills yet. So we have to model it. We have to engage in co-regulation because they just don't know it yet. And that's one of the things that I have to remind myself as a parent. They're 9. She's 6. And even when they're 15, hopefully in my mind, I'm going to be saying, they're 15, Kelly. Like, keep it together. It's okay right now. They're only 15. But these are the type of things. They don't have those skills. And if they have a diagnosis on top of it, it makes it even harder for them to do that. I mean, think of kids with ADHD. They're impulsive. They're inattentive. They're hyperactive. It is hard for them to control their emotions. So that's another aspect to it. And then we've got all of those. Attention-seeking behaviors. So, I'm cruising on time. Okay. Attention behaviors. It's when they want or need something. It can be from adults. It can be from peers. Sometimes it's just, I want to see your reaction. I want to see what you're going to do when I do this. It's the marshmallow test, right? So sometimes we have, like, there's the marshmallow test. You put a bunch of young kids in front of a marshmallow, and you look to see if they're going to go for it. And if they grab it, they don't have the impulse control. And I don't know if you ever are up late at night, YouTube the marshmallow test, because it's really awesome to watch. And then some people will completely lie about it, and they'll be like, I didn't do it, and they've got like marshmallow on their face, and it's completely missing from the plate, and you're like, where'd the marshmallows go? They want it. Like, that's probably more access to tangibles, but it's attention. Like, at the same time you come back, where did it go? Like, they want those type of things. I like to think of us as their marshmallow at time. They want us to have some type of interaction with them. We are also, a lot of us are working professionals. It's hard. We don't have 24/7 time to give to them. So we have to tell them, I'm going to be with you right here. Or give me 3 more minutes. Alexa, 3 more minutes. I have to do that for myself, or else I get stuck in doing whatever I'm doing. And then when I do that, my kids know, I'm not going to push you off. I'm coming. I just need 3 more minutes. Because I can sit there and say 2 minutes and 2 minutes. Again, not going to be too meaningful, but the moment I set on Alexa, they know I'm going to end, and I'm coming to them. And that's going to help for the attention. Common antecedents for attention behaviors: interacting with another child or adult, not understanding the direction. That can be a common trigger. Too many steps in the direction. So if we say, hey, I need you to go do this, this, and this, and they're not doing it, cut it down. 2 steps, 3 steps. You know your child best. Some of them might only need 1 step. So it could be something like that. If a task is too long, again, their diagnosis comes into play. I have some people on my caseloads of families where if one kid is upset, it triggers the other kid. And then the other one starts to get upset. So that's always fun. So instead of having 1 dysregulated, we have 2 dysregulated. So that can be part of attention, and then they want that. And then transitions and independent tasks. Remember, kids don't always want to be independent. They want you to help them. So those are going to be attention-seeking behaviors. Calling out, touching items, touching others. I don't know about you, but again, I don't really like to be touched. But people like to touch things. They like to touch items. They like to touch other people. And they get each other going. Other attention-seeking behaviors is when they're kind of just going all over the house. And it's like the new puppy where they're like animals when they have the zoomies. I don't know about you, but my kids have the zoomies sometimes. I'm like, oh my gosh, you need to go do something. Weight-bearing activities. And then that's a lot of times where they're doing it sometimes for my attention. They want my attention. So what do you need from me right now? I want to go do this. Okay, so just tell me. Tell me you want to go do that instead of showing me by going a little bit nuts within the house. Not engaged in the activity. Can be attention-seeking behaviors, rolling on the ground. One thing that I will tell you that really has always worked for me for kids who get on the ground, whether it's my own kids or other kids, I get down on the ground with them. And that tends to help a lot for them. I get right down on the ground with them. And my kids don't really hit or kick me. I mean, they definitely have, but I'm not too worried about it. But I get down there with them. What are we doing down here? Well, and sometimes they're down here like on my feet down there. So like, I know they want my attention. So instead, I get down on the ground, we have a conversation. How can I help you? What can we do? Okay, you want that? Then let's stand up and ask me. A lot of this is with behaviors is teaching functional communication. Tell me what you want. Don't show me in all of these different type of behaviors. Interact with me. Property destruction, and then verbal and physical behaviors. We have kids who are attention seeking for negative behaviors. They like to engage in negative behaviors because they like to see what your reaction is. So that is a pretty common thing that we see. Additional attention-seeking behaviors, the same thing as the other slides. We're going to shape these behaviors. Because most of the time we don't want to put attention-seeking behaviors on extinction because we want them to interact with us. We want them to talk to us. We want them to want to be with us and interact with us. Because from what I hear, as they get older, they don't really want to hang out with you too much as a parent. So trying to soak up the years now, but I need them to do it appropriately. So tell me. So as they're running around, or sometimes my kids will do the thing where they want my attention and they hit me as they're running by. no, come back, try that again. This is how we do it. We have to teach them how to do it. So a lot of times I do it in the moment. Additional things, what can we do? We want to prompt desired behaviors. Waiting your turn to talk, that's a big one. So I don't know about you, but we have lots of kids who just come and interrupt when you're talking to another adult. We can, of course, sit there and be like, oh, you need to wait. But in one home, what we did is we took it to another level because the kid had such immense ADHD and just could not reference the environment, like if two other adults were talking. So we put little visuals up in front of each one of the entryways, so there, and here, and it said, are my parents talking? And it was like a pathway. Yes, I wait. No, I can speak. As simple as that. He picked it up. I mean, there was no intellectual disabilities, no developmental delays. Picked it up like that, but we needed that as a visual reminder to just stop and think. And then once he was able to do that, we took it out into the restaurant because it was one of those things where I just got to talk to everyone all the time, and they would just, I don't remember, they came up with some type of code word. So as they would sit down and the waiter comes, they would say the code word, and then they'd wait. So sometimes it's just teaching things like that. And it was kind of an off-the-cusp idea because I'm like, normally I would do that for kids with autism or developmental disabilities because visuals are really helpful for them. This kid wasn't that. I'm like, let's try it. Parents are like, sure, we'll do it. And it just worked. It just worked for this kid, and we didn't have it anymore. We can also limit the number of question statements. You get 3 right now. So I don't know if you've got kids who just like to rapid fire off the questions. You get 3 right now. 1, 2, 3. Done for the next 10 minutes. And then we continue on with their day. I have to do that sometimes with my kids because they just have a lot of questions, and it's a little much. You can request them to play in another area or away from their peer or sibling. You can use the reinforcement systems to praise them and highlight the positive behaviors, the poker chips, a visual smile, like a smile system, or a countdown. So that would be that tally system that I talked about. Planned ignoring works really well for attention-seeking behaviors, but it has an ending point. So if I've planned ignored for 5 minutes and they're still doing it, that's not working. I want to move to something else. For most attention-seeking behaviors, we will plan ignore in the beginning, and we won't engage, and then they just kind of take it up a notch until we do that. So then we work on the replacement behaviors. We talked about collaborative planning. We want to set parameters, offer those choices. We can also set a time for when they can chat. And you want to talk about this? Okay, I'll tell you what, for the next week, every night at 6:30, you and I, we're going to go upstairs, and you're going to be able to tell me anything that's on your mind. And I'll stay with you for 5 minutes up to 30 minutes. Put an ending point on it, because if you have one of those kids that just talk, you're going to be stuck there for the next 45 minutes. So instead, you put an ending point. And if you don't have 30 minutes, you don't have 30 minutes. If you have 15 minutes, you have 15 minutes. Sometimes our kids that have attention-seeking behavior, they just want that direct interaction. So we just have a conversation with them of, hey, I can do this for the next week, we'll do it. Make sure it's a time that you can do. It's in a location where you're not going to get interrupted, and then there's an ending point as well. Make sure that ending point is in there, else it won't work out very well. And then you can provide time and space if they're unable to wait. Like, oh, I can see you're not ready. Why don't you have a seat right there? I'll come back and I'll get you when I'm ready. So access to tangibles, we talked about specific item, person, or location. Sometimes kids can perseverate on an item, and they need to have that item. Sometimes it crosses over into addiction, like I need to have that item so bad that it's like an impulse, it's perseveration, I can't get through it. When we get to that level, we want to make sure that we have a plan. Visuals, structure. You can have it after you do this. First this, then that. And then you have limitations on the device that we talked about. That's going to help you. Additional common triggers is denied access to what they want. With tangible, when the function of the behavior is tangible, they can engage in any type of behavior. It's not just always going to be attention. It can be verbal, physical, elopement, defiance. It can be all of that. And essentially with the defiance, what they're looking to do is they're looking to outweight us. Like, oh, you want me to do that? Well, I'm not doing that until you give me my phone. Okay, then I guess you're not getting your phone tonight. And you wait it out. One of the hardest things to do. I was working with a parent not too long ago, and they're like, listen, my child can make herself have accidents on purpose when she's mad. I was like, wow, it's pretty talented right there. And she's like, I'm like, well, what do you do afterwards? She's like, well, I have to clean her. I'm like, whoa, no. She's old enough to clean herself. I'm like, you're not gonna clean it. Like, you're just kind of repeating and reinforcing the behavior. Not that you guys have probably this type of behavior at home, but you'll see where I'm going with it. And I'm like, you're not to clean her. You can go into the bathroom with her and make sure that she takes care of it, give her the steps she needs to do, but she is 100% old enough and capable to do that. And right now, you're making her mad, so she does this to get back at you, and then you give her all the direct attention in the world. No. You're gonna stay in the bathroom with her, and you're gonna be asking her to clean, you're not gonna do it for her. And she's like, that could take hours. And I said, then we're gonna take hours, because we've just gotta get over the hump of the behavior. And she's like, I'm like, can you do that? Is there somebody else, because there's another kid in the house, is there somebody else who can watch the kid? Yes, we have somebody else that watches the kid. I said, great. When you go into the bathroom and you're holding out on that behavior to get over the hump so that she can realize this isn't gonna work anymore, bring your phone in with you. Text your significant other and have them walk by and be like, oh man, I can't wait to go out to the playground. I can't wait to do these things to hopefully help motivate them to move around a little faster. I said, but you are not to help. Like, this is the time where we end up inadvertently reinforcing the behaviors because we don't want to deal with it. We want to continue on with our day. It doesn't help in the long run. Now, as a parent, are there times where I'm like, I just don't have time for this, and I do it? Yes, because nobody is perfect. And sometimes it's just our own ability to just regulate. Like, you know, I'm not having this battle today, so I'm going to help you to get through it. But sometimes it is going to be a battle. That's what some of those behaviors can look like. With access to tangibles, we're going to shape it, we're going to teach them. This is how you appropriately ask for it. This is how you get it. Here's the different components that we can do to help you learn appropriately how to gain access to what you want. A lot of this is modeling language, modeling functional communication. So if they come up and they say something inappropriate to you, nope, can't have it yet. Try it again. Let's reset it. The more that if we sit there and we're like, oh, it's okay, we don't have to worry about it, I'll still give it to you. Nope, we've just reinforced it. We have to build that functional communication. And it doesn't mean that they have to be, can I please have this? No, I'm okay if you just come up and say, hey, can I have my phone? That's way better than some of the alternatives. Tone, language use, potential swearing. I will take anything to avoid those pieces. But don't be afraid to have those conversations and tell tell your children that these are the things that you expect them to do. So what else can we do? Clear directions first then. If you don't have house rules, develop house rules. Just like classrooms. Classrooms have rules. You guys can create house rules. You can ask each one of your kids to come up with a rule. Now, do you have to stick with it all the time? No, but it's just something that you could come up with. And if you have the education mind here, if you have your children sit there and also come up with the rules, it brings a little bit more ownership into it. It's not you guys as the parents telling everyone what to do, it's the whole entire house. You are a community, you are a family. So we are going to have these discussions together. Again, you can use your reinforcement systems, use a timer, ask them appropriate methods, how to deal with being told no. Kids need to learn how to deal with being told no. In the beginning, you might just have to be like, no, but you can get it at this time. And then, eventually, the idea is you don't have to add the but in anymore. The answer is just no. Because if we do have somebody where I tell them no, and I know it's going to be outburst, I'm going to start with, no, you can't have it right now, but we can have it here. Then they're starting to see, oh, wait, there is light at the end of the tunnel. I can still get this. And then eventually, we fade it all back to, you're just going to be told no. Because there's going to be times in their life, many times, that they are told no. And they have to know how to respond without having explosive behaviors. What else? We can remove the item from their view, so if they're perseverating on something, get rid of it. Hide it. I have one family who takes away all electronics at night and locks them up. Because originally they just kept them in their bedroom, and then the kids would sneak into their bedroom and take it. So now it's locked up. And nobody knows the code except for the two parents. And the kids didn't like it, and I'm talking high school kids, didn't like it, but guess what? It worked. Did we have some meltdowns over it? Yes, we did. But this is part of being in our home. I pay for the phone, I support you with all of this, you can have it during this time, you can't have it overnight. And if you get those Guardian apps on the phone, you will see how long they're actually on their phone. And that's what they did. They said, hey, I'm going to give you access to your phone, but know that I'm going to be checking your phone. If you're on your phone in the middle of the night, your phone's going to come back to us. And that really helped because when the time for the consequence came down, it was, we already talked about this. We already had this conversation. You can either give me your phone every night or I'm just going to turn it off. And most of the time, they were very willing to give their phone every night because they wanted it the next day. And it wasn't like they were taking it away at 6 o'clock at night. I think they were taking it away at 9. So like that's more than enough appropriate time. And then again, I related it to when I was your age, I didn't even have a phone.
Right.
So like this worked. Like we can function without a phone. Additional things. So we can remove the item. We can develop a visual for when they can have it. I don't know if you guys have seen those lock boxes that are like for food really, and has a little timer on it. You can use. I have parents use that for technology. You can access it from this time. This is when it unlocks. That's when you can get it. And I have a lot of parents who do that. When I talk to them, they're like, when can I use it? I'm like, for older kids, if they get home before you get home and you're worried about them going out to, use it then. Because then you can set the timer to go off every day at 5 p.m. when you're getting home. Maybe they have 5 or 10 minutes on the device without anybody else seeing what it is. That would be a good time to have it and to use it. And then you can lock it back up. And then it goes away at night. Like there's lots of different options that you can do. It's just that we have to do them. We have to follow through on them. We can work on just sharing. Sharing is hard. Sharing is hard for a lot of people. And then again, the structured choices. So I do a lot of structured choices with my kids, especially if I give them an option they don't like it. I'll be like, all right, so you can either do this now, or you can do it before we go here. There was one that I did the other day to Brinley, and man, she got so mad at me. I can't remember what I needed her to do something and she wouldn't do it, and I said something along the lines of, listen, you can do it now, or you're gonna do it right before your friend comes over. She'd be like, well, I don't wanna do that. Oh, well, then there's your 2 choices. Which one are you picking? I'll do it now. Okay, great, I love it. And there's been times where she's been like a friend, they had a half day today, but my husband was home with them, and he texts me, he's like, hey, so-and-so's gonna come over. I'm like, oh, that's great. I'm like, make sure she does this, whatever the chore was, before. And he's like, I don't really want to do that. And I was like, no, I really need you to do that because then I'm going to have to come home at 9 o'clock at night and be the really bad person. So I need you to do that. So he did. And I'm sure, well, I don't know for a fact if he did, but I'm going to assume that he did because we tend to be on the same page for that. But it's simple. Like you can do this now or something's not helping. Or like for time, I'll do a lot of time with them. And I'll be like, listen, you can either help for the next 5 minutes or I can pick, and it's going to be 10 minutes. And they're like, I'll do 5 minutes. Okay, perfect. Love the choice. Like, those are the type of structured choices I get. It's much more mommy-directed. We talked about it with behaviors. It can serve multiple functions. It can start one way, and then it can go into a whole nother function of behavior. So now we're going to get into those general behavioral strategies, some of which I've kind of already referenced. So for reinforcement systems, first, then. First I need you to do this, then I need you to do that. This is one of the more powerful things that you can do because you need to be in control as the adult. If they wait too long, it's not going to work. So you need to make sure, first we do this, then we do that. And if they're just waiting and they're avoiding, in order for you to get it done, you have to do it within the next 10 minutes. Start to add a little bit more limitations to it as you continue on. We talked about the poker chips. If you do the poker chips, one of the things that you could do is you could get a calendar out. I don't know if you guys have a calendar. We have a calendar on our refrigerator for the month of what different things are, but what you could do is on that calendar, you could pick 1 or 2 days a month where there's a star. That represents the day that they get to go and turn in their reinforcement. So if it's poker chips and they're building money and they're able to go to Target, and then those are the 2 days that it's happening, or in that month. Do not make it every week. Try to spread it out, or it's going to start to cost you a lot of money. Do that, but then what I also do is, in some homes, not all homes, in order to go on the shopping trip, you would have had to have made $7. If you haven't made $7, you're not going on the shopping trip. And then that can be pretty reinforcing because they want to do that. It got to the point with my girls to be like, do I get a poker chip for that? Nope. Why can't I get a poker chip for that? Because I'm in charge, not you. I make it a variable schedule. Just to your point earlier, like how do you fade it back? It's variable. They don't know when it's always coming. And it's really helped. I had another parent who reached out to me once, and she's like, what do I do for this? And we did the poker chips. And then she was like, he's losing sight of the poker chip. He likes shopping, but the poker chips, switch up. Doesn't have to be a poker chip. It was puzzle pieces. For some kids, they like Legos. It's Lego pieces. I'll give you Legos. And then when they get more Lego pieces, they're able to build more things. So there's different options that you can do. Again, start with the high frequency reinforcement, then fade it back. In the beginning, it's a cop doing good system. I really like that you just did that. Or if you're focusing on one behavior, because you're like, I just need to hit this avoidance behavior, what I would say to them is, listen, it's time to do your homework. If for some reason, it's just that special day, they start their homework right away, I'm going to give you 5 poker chips. Holy moly, I'm giving you $1.25 right now because you just blew my mind. Then, it could be the next day, they're not willing to do it. Okay, well, if you can start it within the next 3 minutes, you're going to earn a poker chip. And then what you want to do once they start it, if we're asking them to do something hard, continue to give the reinforcement. Here's another poker chip. 4 minutes have gone by. Now 2 minutes have gone by. Or I started to see that they got frustrated and they asked for help. Thank you for using a strategy. Instead of ripping up the paper or stop doing it, you give another type of reinforcement. It can look like whatever it has to be. And again, it doesn't have to be tangible items. It can be like, listen, if we have, and you can decide what good days are, if we have 8 good days in the next 2 weeks, we're going to go out and we're going to do something. And it could be something you just do as a family. It doesn't have to be anything that costs money. The other piece was collaboration that we've talked about. This is often underutilized. Talk to your kids. Ask them, what can I do? How can I help? What do you want to work for? Dr. Ross Green, if you haven't read his book, Explosive Child, read it. It's good. Within my grad class for behavioral interventions, I have them read Lost at School, which is the equivalent to Explosive Child. It's for kids that have emotional and behavioral disabilities. And it's all about collaboration. So there's 3 plans with Ross Green. Plan A is the things we impose, such as the reinforcement systems, the consequences. Plan B is we sit down and we talk with the kid. And there's 3 stages to it. Like we have an empathetic statement, we problem solve, we model for them. And then Plan C, which I like a lot, I like it more in schools than I do at home, we just let it go and we move on. And there are going to be times that I like that Ross Green says that, because as a parent there are times where I need to know that it's okay that I just moved on. Like I'm not addressing it, we're not moving forward, I'm not having a reflection, I'm just moving on. Because it's sanity for me, it's keeping my household regulated, that's okay too. We don't need to fight every battle. But I do like the Explosive Child, read it if you can, and then again with it, you develop it, the kids come up with the strategies, they share what they'd like to try, doesn't mean that they will try it in the moment, but they do share it. And supposedly there's a new book that he's coming out with. It might have just come out, but I don't have that, I haven't read it yet. But that is definitely one that if you have a kid that has some pretty explosive behavior, that's him, he's your guy. He's actually out of Maine too. I didn't know that until a couple years ago, and then I realized that he's just out of Maine. I'm like, oh, that makes some sense, but I do like his work. He's got a whole website, Life's in Balance, and he's all about kids have lagging skills, and then because of the lagging skills, they have unsolved problems, and within the website, it helps you to kind of gear, and there's a 1 sheet that you can fill out. Here's the skills that they're lagging, and here's the unsolved problems, and it helps to guide you as a parent of the different things that you can do. Visuals, you can create them, you can post them, you can reference them. Also create gestures. Talk to your kids and say, like, listen, if we're out in public and I start scratching the side of my face, that means you gotta tone it down. Because sometimes we have kids where they don't want us to give them feedback in public. Like that just embarrasses them, it makes them mad. But we're parents, we're going to do that. So I tell my kids, that's my job. That's my job, I'm gonna do it, I'm your parent. But I also can respect that they don't wanna feel like they're sticking out. So I come up with a gesture. Come up with a gesture on what it means. For my oldest, when she was younger, if she started to get a little out of control, dysregulated, I'd be like 1, and that would be 1 strike. Then as she continued on, 2, I'd say it. And nobody else would know what it means. I'd just call out a number, she knew what it meant. A couple times at family gatherings, they'd be like, why are you calling out numbers? And I'm like, it's for Brindley. Like she knows if she gets to 10, she's not gonna get something. Like again, it's a reward base because it's hard to be in this type of environment with a lot of things going on. And how do I regulate my emotions? How do I keep calm? How do I not get overstimulated? So I'm helping her to co-regulate, but I'm also offering a reinforcement. And it's something that nobody else knows. I I mean, my mom knew, and my husband knew, but that's about it. But nobody else knows it. So that helped her. We don't really have to use that system anymore because she started to build those skills. But it's not a gesture, it's a verbal prompt, but it's something that can be helpful. Additional environmental control, we've talked a lot about the devices. Create an environment that assists with goals, whatever goals you have. If you have a goal that night that they have to complete their work, create an environment where they can go and they can complete their work. And if there's other people in the household, make sure it's quiet, or make sure that that room is off limits. Sometimes we have to do that. And again, we've switched it up to where they now do the work in the morning before going to school, and that's helped too. Because now I don't have to worry about kids running around and doing different things, or other kids, I don't know if you live in a neighborhood where they knock on the door, can so-and-so come out and play, then you've lost them. And if you say no, you're the worst parent in the world. So it's like you have to say yes at that moment. Choice, we talked a lot about. Continue with choice. The consequence, and really consequences, how we think about it as parents, they're punishment systems. Like, what's going to happen because of this behavior? So I like natural and logical consequences. Especially as a parent, I love natural consequences. When I've told my kids, don't lean over in the chair. Don't lean over in the chair. Oh my God, they fell out of the chair. Why? Because they leaned over. And I'm that parent who's just like, I told you. I'm like, I tell people that, I'm like, I'm a really mean parent if that's what I say to my kids when I actually share. But that's what I say to them because it's a natural consequence. I told you. I warned you not to do that. This is what's going to happen. I like natural consequences. We don't have to impose anything. The consequence is built within. Then there's logical consequences. And I take logical consequences from responsive classrooms. It's a whole big system. With it, it says logical consequences have to hit the 3 R's. They have to be relevant, realistic, and respectful. And I like that. So when I'm thinking of a consequence, like what am I going to do to follow up this behavior? It's got to be relevant, realistic, and respectful. So those are the type of things when you're thinking of consequences, have an idea. So one of the things that happened last night is my mom, they had a half day, she picked up the girls from school, and my oldest, for some reason, has this fixation that she likes jumping on cars. Never seen this before, but only my mom's car, and she ended up scratching her car. And so my mom is not a very happy camper right now, and she told me, and it was a brand new car too, I'm like, oh my God. And I'm not like being like, I'll fix it, I'm not offering that right now. Because I don't even know what it looks like, and it could be like the whole hood, but she's like, I'm like, she never jumps on cars. Like, that's not something that she does. She's like, she does it every time, and every time I yell at her, she's like, Kelly, I'm gonna be honest, like, I yelled at her. I'm like, that's fine. You can yell at her. She's like, but what's gonna be her consequence? It looks like to me as the mom, and I'm like, I'm gonna have to think about that one. I wasn't there, I didn't witness it. Like, yes, this is a big deal, but you also just probably yelled at her pretty good, so she's a little scared right now. I said, but there will be a consequence. But I have to make sure it's relevant, realistic, and respectful. And that's going to be a pretty big consequence. I just don't know what it is yet. And that's going to be something between my husband and I. So sometimes when these big things happen and you're not there, think about what the consequence is going to be. And she knows one's coming. Because, man, when we were driving back from swim practice, I was like, I heard what happened. And my oldest is like, well, I hit her because of this. And I'm like, okay, that's not what I was talking about, but thank you very much for telling me that, and we will deal with that later. And then the younger was like, I jumped on Grandma's car and I scratched. She's not very happy. I'm like, no, she's not very happy. And I said, there will be something that's coming up. Unfortunately, I just don't know what it is yet, because I have to think about that. Because she's already pretty much down on herself, but my mom is not happy. Additional consequences, like we talked about, breaks, apologize, have them correct the behavior. If you have siblings, you have more than one child, and they're arguing, sometimes I make them say something nice, play a game together, do this for the next 5 minutes, and we can just move on. And that's a pretty immediate consequence. And then again, make sure the size of the consequence matches the size of the problem. There's a thing called progressive discipline, where if you keep doing the same thing, I'm going to make it a little bit harder. The punishment's going to be worse. I try to avoid that. I haven't seen a lot of success with that in any home that we brought it into, because I have parents who are like, well, that's strike one, and he did it, and he lost this. Now he's done it again, I'm going to make him lose this. And the idea is, once I get to whatever the punishment is, the big punishment, they'll stop doing it. But sometimes that's just not what happens. So instead, we focus on the positive, the teaching of the replacement behaviors, instead of just a punitive system over and over again. It just doesn't change the behavior. And the idea is we want to change the behavior. Sometimes, don't get me wrong, there are some kids where that level of punishment will change the behavior. But I do tend to like to avoid that just personally. Behavioral strategies, we talked about planning that 5-to-1 ratio. You probably heard of the 5-to-1 ratio. 5 positives to every negative comment. You know where that actually came out of? You probably know this. Couple counseling. It came out of I should have just picked on you guys together.
You don't talk to my wife. We're married.
But like that's one of the things is that 5-to-1 ratio. For every negative, I have to come back with 5 different positives. So I kind of like that one. So model behaviors you want them to do or say, language use, interactions, create routines and procedures. We talked about that in the beginning. Be consistent. We want to respond in the moment. So if we have behavioral strategies in the moment, less is more. Stop talking. Limited engagement. I can wait. Alexa, set a timer. How can I help you? The other good thing for you to say if they get really upset, and if it has nothing to do with you at home, I understand. That goes a long way. If they come home and they're starting to tell you about something that happened at school, whether it's with a peer, a teacher, or like even a friend or a sports team, I understand. That is frustrating. I would be upset with that too. So we're using active listening. We're using empathetic statements. What that shows, and kind of sometimes what they hear is, you're saying I'm right, everybody else is wrong. That's not what we're saying. We're saying I understand. But in their mind they're hearing like, I'm on your side and this is yes, you're absolutely right, everybody is wrong. Those are going to be some of the most saving phrases that you can say when anyone is dysregulated. I understand. I get it. I would be upset with that too. That is frustrating. And then you follow it up with, how can I help? What do you need? The more we can ask questions, the better it's going to be when we're talking about regulation, because it makes them stop and think. If we just decide to do it for them or answer, we're not going to get anywhere. So we want to try to ask questions. We want to respond in the moment too. If we can, work with them. If we can't, we walk away because we don't want to make it any further. Any questions on behavioral supports? Because I do have another section. All right, executive functioning. So what is executive functioning? This is another piece of behavior that I found that has a significant impact on kids with behaviors. So executive functioning, higher level cognitive functioning that helps us to regulate our behaviors. It's developmentally based, so it's age-based. Like I'm not expecting kids who are younger to be able to organize, plan, self-regulate, initiate. Those are things that are going to be hard for them. But as they start to get older, they're able to have those skills. With executive functioning, it has an impact on the environment. It also helps us with social skills, academics, life skills, adaptive living. All of those things relate to executive functioning. So examples of executive functioning deficits are all of the above, things that I just talked about, things that you know, and for time management, I'm just going to go. I do want to draw attention to the last bullet, lack of a social filter. They often just say what's on their mind. They can have executive functioning deficits and they just splurge it out. When we have a kid who has an executive functioning deficit, you want to try the step-by-step approach. Help them organize. Help them plan. These are the different approaches you're going to take. You can use visuals. You can model the steps. Again, one step at a time. Once they've mastered one step, 2 steps. And when you do the 2 steps, you can do it as first then. All right, step 1, step 2, you can do it that way. You can use additional tools, worksheets, schedules, computers, watches. There's Alexa, calendars, especially if you're trying to teach them how to do it themselves. Or hey, you have swim practice. If they have a phone, hook it up to their Google Calendar, because then they get the alerts. Hey, I've got practice, or we've got this event. It goes right to their phone. They're not going to miss it because you know the moment that buzz goes off, they're opening their phone and they're looking at it. You can also plan for transition time. So I don't know if you guys have kids who take a long time to transition. This is one of the things that you want to plan within your day. We need to leave at 7:45. You might tell them we need to leave at 7:40. I have a friend. She has been my friend since 3rd grade. If we are doing a function at 7:30, I tell her it starts at 7. Because I know she'll get there at 7:30. Because she is always chronically late. And I always joke, I'm like, you have some massive executive functioning deficits. She's like, I know. She's like, and she's a social worker. She's like, I know, I just can't get myself together. And now she has a kid. And now it's even longer. And I joke, I'm like, your kid is even faster than you. Like, they've got even better executive functioning. So those are the things that we want to do. Additional ways to support support for executive functioning, avoid clutter. Again, we want to provide that defined space for where work can be completed. Checklists, make them edit. I don't know about you, but I have checklists and post-it notes everywhere. You open my computer, I've got 4 on my screen. I've got them on my desk. I've got them on my desk at Russell Sage, my desk at home. They're on my phone. I scroll over one, there's my checklist. I like my checklist because I also feel accomplished as I get through my checklist and I cross it off. That is a good skill for kids to learn. Review it with them, add and edit. My kids know on Saturday morning, I'm sitting there and I'm making my checklist. Then they'll come up, because a lot of times I work on the weekend, and they'll be like, how far are you on your checklist? And I'll show it. They'll be like, wow, that's really good, Mom. I'm like, thank you for the encouragement. Yes, it's really good. But I'm also modeling for them. This is how I keep myself organized because there's other things happening. You can also have set times to check in, make it part of the routine, and then you can establish those routines, practice them, reinforce them. We want to set time limits, provide enough time to get it done, but not too much so that they procrastinate. So we talked about that earlier. Like, listen, you can either do this within the next 10 minutes, or we're not going to be able to do whatever it is. You want to explain the why. I don't know if you have kids who are like, why? Why do I have to do this? I don't want to do this. If you don't explain the why, they just keep asking. So explain the why. Why? And sometimes like it can be because I said so, but I really try to avoid that as a parent. Why? Because our house is a mess right now. Why do I need to take a shower? Because you smell. Like whatever it might be, those are the things. I explain the why. Because if I don't, it's going to be why, all the way through. So I explain it. We use the rewards. We can implement self-monitoring systems. And this can be them creating a checklist. This can be them reflecting on how they're feeling when they get home. It can be anything that you need them to do. Questions on executive functioning?
When you cut off the why, like
Asked and answered.
Okay.
Asked and answered. I might repeat it 2, maybe 3 times, but if they ask me 3 in a row,
Different points, like.
asked and answered.
Okay.
If it was within the last half of the day, I asked and answered. Or I flip it. What do you think? Why do you think we're doing this? Flip it back on them.
And on the organize, you put weekly.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, what if there's 0? Like, I don't care if my room is a disaster. I don't care if my drawers are all mixed up.
Make it part of it. Every Saturday, we're doing this. Do you want to do it at the beginning of the day or the end of Saturday? And when you ask them that person, they're going to say the end because they don't want to do it now.
When the end comes, they
Yes,
don't.
and then when the end comes, they don't want to do it. But guess what? You're doing it. That's where we hold steady. And then I've had to do this with my own kids. I'll be like, maybe it's easier if we do it at the beginning of the day, and then we just get it done. And now they're like, yeah, that actually does make sense. It takes a couple trials for them
And
to
just
realize.
Ignore the, I don't care if it looks like this.
Yeah.
Why are we like
In my house, I care.
for that?
Yeah, I care. Why? Because I care. That's your answer. And then hours later, why do I have to do this? Why do you think I have to do this? Because you care. That's right. Or if it's my kids, because you care, mother. That's right. Mother cares. Like those type of things. So, increasing appropriate social engagement. Anyone interested in this? Do your kids have challenges with that? Because if not, I'll just kind of, no? Okay, I'll skip over it then. All right, and you have access to it on the slides. And then lastly, I want to go over the model problem-solving approach, because we talked about this. If kids struggle with problem-solving, it is really helpful if we sit there and model it for it. So step 1, we're going to define the problem. So if someone comes up and they're like, I can't find this, I don't know what to do, which happens quite frequently in my household. Okay, what's the problem right now? I don't know. You're telling me the problem is that you can't find, the flute. Brinley started the flute. Wonderful instrument. She started the flute. Okay, so that's the problem. Where did you last have it? I don't know where I had it, or else I know. Okay. Where do you think you last had it? And again, remaining calm. Oh, I think I had it here. Okay, did we check there? Yes, of course I checked. Oh, wait. Did we check there? Yes, Mom, I checked there. And that's when I normally get Mom, not Mother. And then, okay, so what are our solutions? We can go and check here, here, and here. Which room do you want to take? I'll take this room. Okay, if you find it, you're going to yell out or I'm going to yell out. And then we go and get it. But what I'm doing is I'm helping her to problem solve through it. We identify the problem. We come up with information, and then we come up with different plans. And then we execute them. And normally what I do at the end is when we get it, I'll be like, wow, look it. That wasn't that hard. Or sometimes if I'm feeling kind of feisty, over well, but it makes me feel really good at the end of the day because I like to crack a joke. But like those are the type of things we evaluate it after, but we've got to get them through the steps first before we can get to the evaluation and reflection stage. And again, it works for all situations. I don't use it just when something's lost. I use it when I'm dysregulated. I use it when they're upset about something happening. Problem solve. Kids aren't being taught how to problem solve in school. That's not a normal thing. So they need to be taught it somewhere else. All right, this is the last slide. Questions, comments, outbursts, or your own emotional outbursts, I am happy to deal with. It is 7:30 at night, so I've had a long day. But if you have your own outburst, I will address that. But otherwise, it is 7:30 on a dot. We had decided to save the